we are going to make a double batch of 10 gallons of wine. It's going to be a mixed fruit wine here. We got some blueberries, mangoes, got 6 nectarines, about 10 kiwis. Never done anything else besides one fruit, so I want to try mixing. These are all relatively low acid fruits. The kiwi might be a little high, but I think we can go a little bit lighter on some of our chems on that front. So here's day one. I guess in the preparation process we're going to need 2 days really. We're going to take our sugar and we're going to dissolve it in some water, and that will just kind of help keep everything homogeneous here. So this is 20 pounds of sugar. 10 pounds each is going to go into one of these buckets, along with about 10 pounds of fruit. We put 9 pounds of this, and we'll assume that's a couple different pounds. Over here I have my potassium metabisulfate solution. This is for sanitization. This essentially becomes the wash for everything, keeps it extremely clean, extremely sanitized. First step would really be to dissolve our sugar in our water, mash our fruit up a little bit, rough mash, and then we're going to add a little bit of acid blend into it, and this provides a little bit of complexity. We're going to add some pectic enzyme, and that just kind of breaks down the pectins in the fruit. This fruit has been frozen, so the freezing process, if you think about a plant cell anatomy, you have the largest organelle is the vacuole in it, so freezing expands the water in the vacuole, breaks the cell walls, and makes it a little bit juicier that way. So get some of the extra sugars out of there. We're going to freeze it first. The next step in the process is to dissolve the sugar, mash the fruit, and going to sanitize everything here. We'll get these few chems in there. We'll let it sit overnight, and then we will, the last thing we'll do is add our potassium metabisulfate, and this is the sanitization compound as well, and that will kind of hard reset all the microorganisms inside our wine and make sure everything is super clean, and all the microorganisms, bacteria and whatnot are super, everything else is super dead. That way tomorrow we can add our yeast nutrient, yeast energizer, and our yeast itself. All right, we are back after the sanitization of this bowl. We added in 6 pounds of blueberries, 3 pounds of mangoes, and I've actually just decided to do the nectarine and the kiwi in this batch. We have our 10 pounds of sugar all dissolved into our gallon of water, and then we'll do one batch of the blueberry, mango, kiwi, nectarine, and then we'll do the other batch of just the blueberry and the mango and see if we can taste the difference. So we'll get this in there. We'll add in our sugar and add in our water, and we'll add in our pectic enzyme, a little bit of wine tannin, and then we will add our acid blend and then our potassium metabisulfate, and we will let it sit overnight. All right, just finishing up the dissolving of the sugar into 1 gallon of water, ready for round 2 here. Have the first one completed with the kiwi and the nectarine. I have my nylon bag here that I put my fruit into. To this I added 10 teaspoons of the yeast, or of the acid blend. I added 5 teaspoons of the yeast nutrient. I added 2.5 teaspoons of the pectic enzyme, and then 1/4 teaspoon of the potassium metabisulfate. And this is the last thing to go in before the mix. And then, as you can see, this is a very loose lid. I just want the sulfates to dissipate. I have my little hole here for my airlock. I just kind of put a piece of paper towel over it just so no dust can get in. So once this is all dissolved, I'll add this to this, fill this back up to about 5.5 gallons. Leave a little bit of headspace once fermentation happens, and then tomorrow we will add in our yeast and our yeast energizer. So see you then. All right, so here we are 1 day later, day 2. Notice that the bucket is lightly rested on top, air holes open. Put these little paper towels on it just to let the sulfates dissipate a bit. So what we're going to do is it's time to add our yeast. So this is just your standard EC1118 yeast. You got your standard, let's focus there, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is your standard brewer's yeast. It's been used for thousands of years for fermentation. So what's going to happen, we're going to pop 2 grams of yeast in here, and I just want to go with 2 grams. I think we're going to hold off for now on the yeast energizer, and this essentially just kind of jump starts the fermentation process. I want to see how it does without it, almost like a yeast steroid. So we're going to put 2 packets of EC1118 in here, 2 in here, since we have equal amounts of fruit and water. And I'm going to wait probably in about a couple days, and then we will add the yeast energizer if needed. I have my sterilized with potassium metabisulfate stir. Keep everything super sterile. We don't want to add in any additional microorganisms, just the ones that we want in there, just the brewer's yeast. And the fermentation process will begin to happen. We'll take the sugars from the literal 10 pounds of sugar, and then also some sugars from the fruit that we put in here, and it will start the fermentation reaction. So it'll take sucrose and oxygen, and it will create ethanol and carbon dioxide. And what we'll do is, once I put the yeast in here and give it a stir, I will put an airlock on here, like a one-way valve, and that will keep outside air from going in and have the carbon dioxide release out of there. We'll get the yeast mixed up into here, we'll get the airlocks on, and we'll start the fermentation process. I have my airlocks, and you can see this one-way valve here. Inside there's a little cone, or a little cylinder. We're just going to fill this up just a little bit, maybe about halfway, and then this one as well. And contrary to popular belief, I guess, or however people think fermentation happens, you know, when you think about aging a wine, you think about sitting and aging for a long time. Well, the aging takes place in these demijohns, or these big glass carboys, and then again into wooden casks to impart some of the tannins and the flavor. Most of the fermentation happens between, let's say, 14 and 21 days. And what happens is the yeast, through the fermentation, raise the alcohol percentage by volume and get to a point where they eventually die. And there's a point, that's why you never see anything except for port wine to be extremely high in alcohol content. It's because the yeast actually die from the alcohol poisoning. So especially this with the Saccharomyces cerevisiae, the brewer's yeast, starts out slow and eventually creates enough alcohol where it can't continue the fermentation process anymore, and that's the end of the fermentation process. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take this, right, we're going to siphon it into here. We're going to leave a little bit of space on the bottom for all the fruit particulates and the dead yeast to kind of settle down there. I'm going to transfer it into here. We're going to fill this up, let it sit about a month, right, and then that's called the racking time frame, or the clarifying. It's going to sit, it's going to settle, and all the sediment's going to flow out to the bottom, and then we're going to transfer it into another one, let it sit, settle down to the bottom, and then transfer it and keep transferring it, and to get an ultra clarified wine. That's how you get the smooth flavor and whatnot. This is day 2, and we'll keep you updated, and hopefully in a couple days this will start bubbling and the yeast will be all active and creating some alcohol. And then begins the waiting phase of the process. So what we have left is the fermentation, we have the racking, the clarifying, and then we have the bottling. And then between now and then we'll do a hydrometer reading so we can see just how much alcohol is going to be in ours. Stay tuned. Alright, here we are on day 3, and as it turns out, we have some movement. I noticed that this one was cruising this morning. Still no movement on this batch here. What I did was I added the yeast energizer, 2.5 teaspoons as per the directions on the packet. This one I left alone. This one I put in a little bit of the yeast energizer, kind of to jumpstart the fermentation. And then I also added in another pack of, or another gram of the Saccharomyces yeast, and that's just in case the yeast that was put in here was dead, I guess. I mean, it dehydrates and can kind of go past its usefulness. You know, it does have a date where it doesn't really become useful at all. So a new pack of yeast, the yeast energizer, and one thing I noticed is on the stem of this airlock here, there's quite a bit of, let's see if I can get it to focus, quite a bit of condensation. Now earlier today I didn't notice any in here, but just starting to, I don't think this is going to focus. I'm just starting to see a little bit of condensation in here, which is a good sign. So this one's doing its thing. This one will, hopefully tomorrow it'll start. What I did was I opened the top here, put in the energizer, put in the yeast, and then I just gave it a quick stir. Hopefully it does its thing. Day 3 and already a bit of movement here, which is pretty exciting. So the fermentation will happen for probably about 14 days to maybe around 20 days. And what we're looking for is the air bubbles to be about 30 seconds apart from each other. And then I'll kind of open the tops up and give it a stir and kind of activate all the remaining yeast. And then we'll transfer it over to these Jemmy Johns, these carboys, where they'll be sitting for a while and racking. We actually still put the airlocks in here because, you know, over time a little bit of fermentation will still happen. One of the last things we do is we add a potassium sorbate to the wine, which is a preservative, very common preservative used in just about everything in the US. So that'll just kind of kill off all the remaining yeast. If this was champagne, we would actually throw a little bit of sugar in before bottling, and that's why they put the cages on it, so that the corks don't blow off. Because this, over time, you know, this is a lot of pressure, and imagine pressure built up in one of these or in a bottle without the cage, the twisted cage on it. Yeah, day 3 and got some movement on one, and hopefully we'll get some day 4 moving on the other. All right, here it is on day 4, and we finally got this batch fermenting. Could have been the yeast energizer, it could have been the fresh gram of yeast that I put in, but as of now, we have fermentation on both of them. So we'll let these two do their thing for probably about 2 weeks, and then we'll reevaluate. Maybe we'll give it a little stir here and there. I'm gonna let this go for a couple days, and you know, I'd give it a stir to kind of gel things up. But for now, I'm just gonna let these yeast that are doing their thing right now just keep doing their thing right now. So don't really want to disturb them. So we'll check back later. All right, well, it's officially a couple weeks later, and primary fermentation has stopped. So our primary fermentation is complete inside of this fermenting bucket. I took out our bag with all the must and I squeezed it out, so there's a lot of nice juice. There's a nice, real deep kind of purple red color. And what I did was I have a tube, and the bottom of this stirring apparatus has a little hole in the bottom, and what I do is I put this siphoning tube through the bottom of the hole, and it keeps the hose maybe a half inch off the bottom of the bottom of the bucket here. And this has settled. A lot of the yeast has died and fallen down in there. A lot of the particulates from the must has settled to the bottom too, so that's why it's good to keep it, you know, a little bit off the bottom. So there's a hoses in the bottom. What I did was I ran it up here, and then now we are siphoning into the glass carboy, and you can see it's doing its thing here, slowly siphoning it. I essentially just sucked through the bottom of the hose to start the siphon, so that will siphon all the way out of the bucket. This is a 6 gallon carboy that's about, let's see, 5.5 gallons. So I'm going to top the rest off with water, or you can also use like an ocean spray cranberry or blueberry or blackberry juice or something to give it a little bit of extra flavor as well, so I might do that. But for now, yeah, we're officially the start of racking season, where we get the wine into the carboy, and then what we'll do is we will pop the airlock back onto here because the primary fermentation happened in this bucket. There still might be a little bit of gas release happening, so we still want to have that airlock on there just to keep everything sanitized. And what we'll do is we will let this settle. All the particulates will settle down to the bottom, and we will take this and we will siphon this into another container and just kind of keep doing that. And that clarifies and makes the wine a lot more smoother. Keeps a lot of the, you can see it, the wine coming out of there. So that's the siphon. It's gonna take a while, but that's part of the siphons. So yeah, the racking will have a little particulates and dead yeast settle to the bottom, and we will just kind of keep siphoning this into new containers. And I will probably do that about 2 or 3 times. The more you do it, the smoother the wine is, but the longer you have to wait. So it's a constant battle of when you want to bottle. But yeah, I tasted it. It's a little zingy, so that's good. I mean, it's kind of the point. Yeah, good flavor though. Real nice kind of complexity in body and all that. And yeah, great color so far. I mean, it's a little cloudy, but I just kind of stirred everything up, and not stirred it up, but I pulled the must bag out and squeeze that out. So yeah, we will get the other batch racked into the carboy, and then yeah, we'll do another update later on. All right, well, it's officially day 30 and we're in the middle of racking. As you can see, we have a sediment layer on the bottom of our glass carboys or demijohns or glass containers, whatever you want to call them. Still have our airlocks going. Since primary fermentation already occurred, this is technically secondary fermentation, which is very low, if any. I would doubt we would see any bubbles coming here, as the yeast have kind of already done their thing, have already fermented most of the alcohol. So the alcohol in these 2 containers is roughly 14%, and it's gonna stay that way. The yeast, if there's any alive now still, just kind of aren't fermenting. We still have the airlocks on there just in case, but as you can see, there's no real movement going on in these airlocks. So we're in the middle of racking, and here's where all the sediment is, slowly, gravity is taking effect. It's, taking all the solids down to the bottom here. And as you can see, there's some, some ridges. I guess these ridges here are kind of catching a little bit of the solids that were, within the wine. But most of that is working its way down to the bottom here. And, we do have a good, I would say, inch of solid forming on the bottom. When it comes time to rack these again, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have my fermenting bucket here. I'm going to siphon the wine from these carboys into the fermenting bucket, and we're gonna just keep continuing the racking process. And that essentially removes the wine from this with the solids and just kind of restarts the racking process. We're gonna lose a little bit of volume, which is expected with each racking, just because you are gonna lose an inch of liquid as well as solids, but it's really kind of imperative to get the solids out of the process. But we are within the racking process now, so day 30, I probably give this another week or 2 within the first racking, and then we will get to our second. The more racking that you do, the better the more clarified the wine, the smoother the wine. So I do plan to rack this 3 or 4 times, just because I like to make really smooth wine. We will let this do its thing for another week or 2, and we will rack it again. Well, it is finally time for bottling. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna siphon this opposite 6.5 gallon container, right down into our bottling bucket. And what I have here is a headlamp, and you can see the beautiful color in there. Beautiful red, blueberry, mango, kiwi, nectarine. You can see there's still just a touch of floating going in there. I could rack it another month, but you know, I think it's time to bottle. Again, what we'll do, we'll rack this down into our bottling bucket, then we'll put the bottling bucket up here, and then we will get ready for bottling. So the transfer has started. The racking of the large carboy container into the bottling bucket has started. What you want to do is you want to try to not aerate this as much as possible. I have here, you can see I'm keeping it against the side. It is just siphoning now down into the bucket, trying to keep as little aeration as possible. And that's just to not introduce any extra oxygen into here. So once this container has been racked into this bottling bucket, I'm going to add in some potassium sorbate as a stabilizer just before going into the bottles, and that's just to prevent no extra fermentation from happening. So we'll check in a bit. So what I have here is 48 standard wine bottles. Going to be using number 9 corks for this, or the largest you can get it, and that just dictates how long really it can age in the bottle. And for this, I don't know, I guess indefinitely, really. We'll see. I've had some blueberries from 2015 that are still really good. Looking forward to keeping this stored and available for use just about whenever. Again, at 48 bottles. I suspect somewhere around 50 bottles to come out of this, so we'll see. Wrapping up batch number 2 here. I got it from the carboy into the bottling bucket, and just like with batch number 1, I'm going to add a few more extra chems into here just to make sure that everything is preserved and stable. So this is potassium sorbate. This is a real common preservative. I'm just going to add a little bit in here. This is about 7 gallons, so I added 3.5 teaspoons. And what this will do is this will stop fermentation. This will keep everything kind of chill, I guess, in the bottle. This is a stabilizer to essentially kill all fermentation, bring everything back to 0. And then for the sweetener, I'm going to add to this one a little bit of white crayon. This has a ton of sugar in it. This batch is just a touch bit more bitter than the first batch, so I think that the sugar should do really well. So we got 31 bottles of the blueberry, mango, nectarine, kiwi. Let's see how many we can get out of this. All right, here is the first bottle. We have our bottling bucket right here. We have our siphon, and what a great looking color on that wine. Wow, that's just really nice color. The flavor is amazing. What I did, I'm just sitting here on my kitchen floor. I have the siphon, and I'm just gonna put it right up against the bottle so that way it doesn't aerate or leave any more oxygen into it. And I'm just going to flip this lever over, and as you can see, the wine is not splashing all that much. It is just running down the side of the bottle, and the more I turn it, the faster that it flows. It is not a quick process, but making sure that it doesn't aerate is pretty big, because we don't want to introduce any oxygen in here, possible lead to some oxygenation or oxidation really. And right about when it gets to the top of the neck here is when I will cap it off. Can you hear that splashing? That's what we don't want to hear. Turn that real quick in time. Okay, nice. So we have bottle number 2, and actually that's perfect. Bottle number 2 is set. So we'll get bottle number 3. Pop that in there, and we'll do a little corking exercise now. All right, we have our 2 bottles here. We have our number 9 corks, and these corks are the thickest. What we'll do is we have our corking tool here. We will load the cork in here, and we will grab the neck of the bottle. Ooh. Make sure to do this evenly. There we go. And then put some force into it. And there it is. That is 1 corked bottle of wine. We'll do another one. And this is ready for labeling. This cork is nice and tight in there. We will load this cork in, grab the neck of the bottle, put some force into it, and there it is. And these are ready for labeling and storage. And man, these have a great color on it. All right, well, round 1 bottling is complete, and we have 12, 24, and 31. So 31 bottles. That's kind of a better yield than I was expecting. It's got great color. It's ultra clarified. Blueberry, mango, nectarine, kiwi. 31 bottles. We still have 6.5 gallons cumulative of just blueberry mango, so that will be the next batch. But awesome yield, awesome look, awesome taste. It's pretty tangy, which is fine. It'll take a little bit of time to kind of gel, age a little bit, but these number 9 1.5 corks are going to be perfect for that. Hello everyone. Wanted to give first-hand tasting of this wine post-bottling. Really looking forward to seeing how it is. It smells amazing. It's got great color. I think leaving it racking for a while, let all the solids settle to the bottom, kind of ultra clarified it. It is super smooth, it's super refreshing. I like to pop these in the fridge. As you can see, it's got just a fantastic color to it. I just took this out of the fridge, so a little bit of condensation on here. I wish you could see it from this angle with all the light coming at me. But we'll give it a sniff, and that's the first thing I get really is that blending of blueberry and mango. It almost kind of smells like strawberry, kind of. It's real. You can tell there's a touch of acidity to it. Let's give it a little swirl test. It still maintains, rather well. Let's give it a taste. One more taste. It's really good. It's got a medium body to it, right? The flavor holds for quite a while, not too long, but yeah, nice crisp, nice fresh. Actually, a rather light to medium body to it, I'd say. Really refreshing, especially when it's chilled. Really, really, really good. The acidity isn't overpowering, but it's there. I think the acid blend that we added in really kind of gave it a nice pH. Again, that blueberry sticks out. So does that mango. Kiwi nectarine, not too much. I think next time I'm going to add in maybe even 5 pounds of kiwi. Maybe a kiwi nectarine solo instead of the blueberry mango. Actually, that sounds really good. I think I'll try that. Really, really, really good. We got 63 bottles, which is great. Wine for a while. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Give this a shot. Use different fruits, or again, this gives you the scaffolding to make your own. But super fun, and yeah, it's just great to have all this around, and great to share with friends and loved ones. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.